In the world of Kengan Ashura, money means power. The more money you have, the more likely you are to hire the best of the best when it comes to fighters. Good fighters mean good standing in the Kengan Association, but if you're a member of the association, just hiring a strong fighter really isn't enough. You have to have something to help you stand out and surpass all other potential employers, and also give your fighter an actual reason to fight for you. In Waka's case, for example, his manager technically grew and bred his own fighter. Well, not necessarily bred, because let's see, this man was not actually clapping, but still. The point is, this part of Ashura is what I truly love, and it's expressed the best way through none other than Kazzy the Swift, Kazzy the Rook, Kazzy the Goat, Kazuo Yamashita, the Kengan of Kengan Ashura. What is good, y'all? Sync here, and today we're going to talk about Kazuo Yamashita in Kengan Ashura. Now, we're going to talk about his role in the story, his background, character dynamics, and what I'd like to see from him going forward in the series, because this is a fan favorite character. At least to me, he's one of my favorite characters. He's actually one of the main reasons I actually started watching Kengan Ashura, because it had an old man as a focal point in the series. I can't say the exact same for Omega, but that's a whole different jar of peanuts. Okay, this is Kazzy the Rook, Kazzy the Swift, Kazzy the Fish. Now, let me tell you who he is. All right, he is the man of many nicknames, but Kazzy, he is a middle-aged man who's always played it safe. When he was younger, he had dreamed of being a strong fighter, but was never really able to due to being frail and not adept to fighting. But this didn't really stop him, although unlike Kaneda, where Kaneda found different methods in order to combat his weakness, Kazzy just didn't. He just gave up on it and just decided to take a smooth, simple life. And so this didn't really stop him from having a love of combat sports, where he's always watched top performers like Sekibayashi, Gaolan, and Okubo during their public matches. So he's basically a regular person that gets sucked into the Kengan world, which I feel like is a very beautiful way of actually showing what the exact Kengan Association looks like, how the world is, and how it looks to a regular person. Because you got to remember, in the beginning of the series, these are big numbers going around for people. And so this is some things that we gloss over nowadays, because just we don't really talk about it. We're so much focused onto the fighting aspect, but I like this aspect of it. I don't know what it's called exactly, but I like it. If you know what it's called, please comment down below, because I don't even know what to call it. I just know that I like it. Anyways, ever since Kazzy got sucked into the Kengan Association, his life has changed forever. Or rather, not even just getting sucked into the association, but rather meeting Ohma. You see, Kazzy has a problem when it comes to his self-confidence ever since he was young. He had a problem standing up for himself. He had a problem fighting. He had a problem just talking to people that he even saw as a flint of authority. Even people who he didn't see as authority, people who just scared him a little bit, he had a problem talking to him. When Kenzo originally brought up the brain, Kazzy was he was terrified to even talk to his own son. And Kenzo wasn't even a full-fledged adult by this point. With that being said, let's go ahead and talk a little bit about Kazzy's character design and how Sanjo managed to come up with Kazzy the Rook. So in the extremely early days of Ashura, once the first chapter was finished, Kazzy was essentially meant to serve as someone to show that Ohma is so dangerous that it makes you want to preserve your own bloodline, because you don't know how long your life is going to last being around him. He wanted to show just how dangerous Ohma really is as a person, that it drove Kazzy just to his own primal urges. Well, that was going to be it, and that was the entirety of Kazzy's character at first. But then Sanjo's advisor had told him, hey, you know what? Why don't we just reuse Kazzy as Ohma's partner instead of replacing him with, a young employee of the Nogi group? Which, by the way, the design for the young worker, if you look at him, he looks like a pretty generic young anime boy. I mean, I kind of want to say he looks a little bit like Misasa, but that's just me. Anyways, the fact that they originally planned to replace Kazzy is a little heartbreaking, but in the end of the day, it turned out really well, and it made Kazzy stand out as just not another generic anime character. Name another anime where you see a main character, or rather, a surrogate main character, rather a focal point in the series is this old man who cannot fight. He has to find different means of fighting, which he does have the potential to fight, but he doesn't have the physical abilities to fight. I'll get into that later, though. But you can't really name that many series we have a character like that. Normally, the old man is a wise person, and he's giving all all this spiel and information to the main character who's like this young, spirited youth just growing and stuff. But that's not the case with Kazzy. This man is terrified. He's just a regular civilian. This man is an NPC in a world where people are leveling up like crazy. And it's even crazier when I call him an NPC, because if you look in Omega, this man is literally just an NPC after he runs away from Zia G. I'm sorry, after Kazzy the Swift escapes Zia G. Anyways, so let's talk about Kazzy's background. Now that we got his character design, where his upbringing actually came from, let's see where his upbringing according to the story came from. You see, Kazzy is a descendant of the first Kengan, Yamashita Ichinoshin. Now, Yamashita Ichinoshin was a fighter who represented the Nogia family during the Edo period, where, is it Edo or Edo period? I don't know. I feel so bad if I ever say that wrong. I apologize wholeheartedly. Anyways, it was a period where the Nogi's family, saved Yamashita's family from death so long as Ichinoshin fought for them. Now, Ichinoshin was definitely one of the strongest fighters at the time. I mean, this man was, of course, not on par with the strongest fighters nowadays, because, you know, back then fighting was a little bit different. But you got to consider, they didn't have that many rules in that Kengan Association as well. So you got to say, all right, this man Ichinoshin may have had the hands. He may have put on the mittens on some people. He probably could have gave Ryan that work. But he participated in the first Kengan Annihilation tournament despite being badly injured a whole month prior. This man had 30 days to recover his spirit and then said, nah, I'm going to win this tournament, because you need somebody to fight in this tournament, and I need that money. But not necessarily because of the money. He fought because he wanted to, and that's a very important part with Ichinoshin. You see, what made Ichinoshin such a fierce opponent was his fist eye, or rather the Kengan. So it's basically, my man's had that observation hockey, just like Katakuri. The only two other people in the entire Kengan series to have the fist eye are Koga in Omega and Kazzy. Now, Kazzy had a wife and 2 kids. His wife left him for unknown reasons, and his son Kenzo, who we talked about earlier, was a shut-in. And he locked himself in his room after Kazzy was creeped out by his interest in brains. And not just that, but Kenzo wanted to shut himself away from the rest of society so that he can actually, focus on his own studying. To Kazzy, all he did for several years was just leave food at his door in order for his son to pick it up and then eat. He didn't even see him for 3 years at a time. So his other son, Yasuo, who was cut out of the anime, he fell in with the wrong crowd and often stole money from Kazzy. Like, on a monthly basis, this man had him on a paycheck. Or rather, Yasuo would steal money from Kazzy in order to pay off his gang's protection. I believe that gangs back then had like a protection fee in order, like, oh, if you pay us, we won't, nothing bad will happen to you, or something like that. That's why gangs are stupid. Anyways, the whole point around this here is that before Ohma, Kazzy was a pushover. He got money yoinked from his son. He was afraid to see his other son. He refused to stand up for himself against his own boss, blissfully oblivious of the entire Kengan world around him, by the way, and drank away all his problems, usually alongside Tachibana and Nozomi, but that really doesn't happen because he never really remembers ever drinking with them. At least that's how I like to see it. This is who Kazzy was before meeting Ohms. Okay, so this is where the absolute glazing of Kazzy begins, okay? Because now I can talk about all the accolades that Kazzy accomplished during his time with Ohma. First one is going to be getting Yasuo to come back home thanks to Ohma's help with beating up the entire gang. The second one is going to be calling Kenzo for the first time and even having Kenzo come down to the Annihilation tournament after no one knew what the fuck he looked like. Then you have Kazzy, who took on over a 10 billion yen debt, or rather a 10 billion yen bet with Panasonic, and winning it. He won 10% of Panasonic shares, thank you. Then dodged a needle from Ren, a dedicated assassin. He had him shook. Then became an unknown threat of the Kengan Association, stood up to Elio twice. He stood up to Elio, then stood up to Ryan, then stood back up to Elio after Elio threatened him. This man, Kazzy, came back with the receipts on his telephone and said, nah, you wouldn't do that because I got you. absolute cinema. And then you have the moment where Kazzy stood up for Ohma when he talked back to Nogi, because Nogi, you gotta remember, near the end of the series, Nogi actually wanted Kazzy to not go through with the match, because he wanted Ohma, to survive, because he didn't want a repeat of what happened in the family in the past. Nogi's whole thing is that he wanted to make amends with Kazzy's family, but to Kazzy, he heard all of Nogi's yapping and then said, nah, Sway, you put me here. I'm not leaving until this is finished. I'm letting Ohma fight it out. What happened in the past is the past. This is today, and this is the present. We trying to live through this, man. And let's go get a drink, hit downstairs, my boy. And this is just the beginning for the legend that is Kazzy the Swift, Kazzy the Goat, Kazzy the Rook. I didn't even mention his shogi skills, but that's who Kazzy was before. All right? We're talking about his time during Ohma. Now let me talk about after Ohma, okay? After Kazzy has now had a good relationship with Ohma. You see he's coming back, his eyes, they looking sharper. One, he opened a company that distributes fighters in the Kengan Association in Omega. He has more confidence in his knowledge of fighting. Other fighters respect him. Ken respects him. Nogi respects him. Elio, he damn sure respects him. Metsudo, even Metsudo, who was a byproduct by this, okay? The fact that he had Elio shook, well, not necessarily shook, but he had the respect of Kure Elio. Metsudo said, nah, that Kazzy dude, he cool, bro. I like him. He had the entire association on their knees for one chapter. Let's go on to a little bit more the friendlier side with Kazzy. We're going to start with his nicknames, okay? So Kazzy is a man of multiple nicknames. Now, the first one is my favorite, Kazzy the Rook. This one is because of his shogi skills, where, the Rook is a common piece in shogi. Then you have Kazzy the Fish. This is one that he mentions during his fishing trip with Dr. Hanafusa. And he also mentions being Kazzy the Fisher, where, he's a fisherman with a rod. Go figure. But then you have Kazzy the Cold Sensitive, where during the end of the year party with Katie and Ohma, this man Kazzy pulled up with like 5 sweaters like that kid from that Christmas movie. Then you have Kazzy the Broad Axe Pitcher, where he was pitching during his earlier years when he was younger, so this man probably could have made MLB. Anyways, now the newest one, the latest addition that we have towards the Kazzy patch is Kazzy the Swift. This is when he was running for his life from Zia G alongside Koga. And that's all the actual nicknames we get from Kazzy. Of course, there's Kazzy the Goat, Kazzy that homie, Kazzy the boy, Kazzy, he is him. But that's all fan-related stuff, all right? For me, that's just Kazzy, bro. That's Kazzy the Goat to me. Anyways, what's your favorite Kazzy nickname? So with that, let's go ahead and talk about Kazzy's notable interactions with other characters. You gotta remember, okay, Kazzy's not a fighter, he's just more like a talker. He's Kazzy the Yapper. And so, one person that actually can withstand his yapping is Katie, especially in Omega, because this man does not stop talking during these tournament matches in Omega. But him and Katie have a relationship where, of course, she is now his assistant, because she was previously Nogi's assistant throughout the duration of Ashura. It wasn't until Kazzy actually opened his own company that Katie became his assistant. His assistant before was Ren, who we're going to talk about later. But as far as Katie and Kazzy, they have a pretty good relationship with each other. Of course, there's no really odd jokes. Of course, they drink a lot. His other assistant, Ren. Ren is a wild card, and I'm going to tell you why. Ren was the first assistant that Kazzy actually had. She was Kazzy's assistant during Ashura and his assistant in Omega. But we don't really see much of Ren because she's always the one that's off traveling, going to different places and talking to different people, gathering information, who then translates it over to Kazzy for whatever reason, but she also translates it over to Nogi in the beginning of Ashura. And so Ren is like a information collector. We don't really see too much of their interaction. It's just more so she's a good worker. We don't know too much about Ren. Next is going to be Nogi. Now, Nogi is a interesting man. Nogi is a very stern person. He has a very stalwart face. But with Nogi, he has the most respect out of anyone in the beginning of the series for Kazzy, and that sticks throughout the duration of Kengan. And that's, of course, because of their history between their families. Nogi already knew who Kazzy was once he was employed and he saw his last name and he saw his face, be like, okay, that's the guy. And so that's why Nogi actually brought him into the Kengan Association. Now, did he expect him to meet Ohma first? No, he just realized that, oh, they know each other already. So Nogi just went with the flow on that one. But he was always looking out for Kazzy's best interest. And Kazzy, he appreciates Nogi like to no end. That is the homie. Nogi is absolutely the GOAT because he set up everyone. Nogi set up Kazzy, he set up Ohma, he set up Katie, he set up Lehito out of all people. He set up Lehito to get into the Annihilation Tournament. Nogi's the homie. And lastly, of course, we're not going to talk about Ohma just yet. Okay, wait. We're going to get to Ohma in a second. But Ken, that's right, Ken, the Genya bookstore owner. Those two are the best of bros, man. They drink together, they like drinking, okay? They like drinking, they like sitting, they like playing shogi. When Ken freaking dragged Kazzy, because you remember he talked about shogi, said, yo, Kazzy, you gotta come with me, man. This dude is crazy on the shogi. And then Kazzy showed us his, nah, I got you, bro. Watch this. Then gets clapped by Kaneda. That was hilarious. It's a really good thing because when Kazzy's boss sees him leave into a limousine with Ken, out of all people, like an owner of a freaking famous bookstore, and he's saying, wait, you're getting a car with him? Say, yeah, yo, that's my boy. Oh, nah. See, that's like a Darman video type thing right there. Anyways, and so now let's talk about Kazzy's biggest role in Ashura and Omega. So in Ashura, he gives us the viewpoint of a regular person going into the Kengan Association. He's the catalyst for showing Ohma's humanity, as little as it may be at the time. But Ohma helps Kazzy out in so many ways. Kazzy helps us see Ohma grow from this battle-hungry homeless dude to an actual person who does have a reason for fighting. And he brings a layer of cunning to the series where he's not a fighter, but he is a fighter, for lack of a better term. This man was going through it, all right? This man, Kazzy, was in debt. He had family issues. He was getting cooked by his job. He was getting cooked by his sons. He has no sense of self-worth. But Ohma gave him all of that back. And he didn't even ask for anything in return. And that really hurt Kazzy because he didn't know exactly what he can do to repay Ohma. But for Ohma, someone who's battle hungry, all that he wants to do is fight. And so he doesn't mean that, yo, you want to fight against me. You want to fight. All that Ohma wanted was to fight. He wanted to see people fight. He wanted to see a good fight. He wanted to fight. He is a fighter through and through. Now, that last scene where Ohma's asking Kazzy, Kazuo Yamashita, do you want to fight too? That is a beautiful moment because in the past, that was translated to, hey, do you want to get your ass beat too? Now it's translating to, do you want to fight alongside me? That is great writing in my opinion. And so a little bit of this crumbles when we get to Omega. Okay, I'm not gonna hide it. All right, I ain't gonna sugarcoat it or anything. But Kazzy, up until the point of the Purgatory versus Kengan Association matches, everything up to that point was golden. Okay, that was peak Kazzy right there. This is Kazzy when he's a little bit of a yapper, but he's not too much of a yapper. Okay, you know what I mean? You know what I mean. But Kazzy the Yapper is in full swing. We get into Omega, bro. Like, it's upsetting because what was once a great character is now just downsized to this old man who will not just shut up. And he went from Kazzy the Rook, Kazzy the Swift, Kazzy the Fish, Kazzy the Broad Axe Pitcher, to Kazzy the Yapper, who would not stop talking about things we are clearly looking at while watching the fight. I can't imagine the amount of stress and anxiety going through Katie's mind because she's the only one that is hearing Kazzy talk in the series. Mind you, he is only talking to Katie. Lord help me. She has the patience of the gods. And a few other things. Anyways, his input is greatly valued by everyone in the series. Even Julius listens to him at a time. But what was once an important character, with an asterisk, in Ashura is now just a side character in Omega that won't stop monologuing. And with the focus from the series now being from, the fights and the magnitudes of the fights, the magnitude of the tournament, to now just being a big fight against the connector and either Koga or Ohma going against them, Kazzy's pretty much finished his game. Yeah, Kazzy's story is actually fulfilled at this point. And so there's not really much to do with him. Let's see here. He's got his sons back. He's out of debt. He has a great job. He opened a company. He has hot assistants, plural. So you could say that after the Kengan versus Purgatory, Kazzy isn't really needed in the series, and that's why he's talking so much. Because you got to give him something at that point. There's really no reason like that. He's beating his game. He's beating the game. He's just going through New Game Plus right now. He's like Metsudo, except he doesn't have anything else to do. So that's my argument as to why Kazzy talks so much, and I feel like that's okay in Omega. He's already beaten this game. They got to find something to do with him, man, because right now he's just floating through New Game Plus. But it doesn't take away from the fact that look at the Kazzy from the past, where this man was always in shock, always in like turmoil. His face is like constantly in pain. To where he is now in Omega, where this man is smiling, Gideon, Kiki, and Kakan. I bet you when he's sitting on a high chair, he got his feet swinging. That's the Kazzy we got right now. And I like that Kazzy. And I like the other Kazzy too. In fact, I like both Kazzys. Because this is Kazzy the Swift, Kazzy the Rook, Kazzy the Goat, Kazzy the Broad Axe Picture, Kazzy that if Sanjo does anything with Kazzy at this point, I'll be very surprised, because I personally don't think there's another milestone for him to reach. He's already beaten this game. He's already completed all tasks and agenda. With that being said, let me know what you guys think down below. What's your favorite Kazzy nickname? How'd you guys feel about his role now in Omega? Thank you all so much for watching. My name is Sync, and I'll see you guys for the next one.